Hello, dear folks, my dear fellow Californians. Welcome to the show. Jack Chow on the East-West show with the G&E TV. I say this many times. I love United States. I love democracy. The more I love democracy, the more I want to find out what's inside the whole thing of democracy, and what is the composition of democracy, and how we want to exercise our right into democracy. So now we're talking about running into a election 2016, which is said to be the most important or never seen in history, unprecedented, so to speak, in American history, an election that draws so much attention. Nobody is not talking about it.
That's right.
All right, good. So joining me is my good friend out of Orange County, Mr. Fred Whitaker, chairman of the Republican Party of Republican Party of Orange County. Please, welcome to the show.
Jack, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Very good, very good. I'm so glad that I become more mature politically, because in the past I used not to listen that much to both parties. Mm-hmm. Now I tend to open my ears to listen to both parties. As a show host, you better stand in the middle of the road. So that you have friends from the left-hand side, you have friends from the right-hand side. Rather than you stay on the left, you lose the right, and vice versa, right?
Absolutely.
Very good. So to start the show, though, as almost a routine, I would like to hear some personal story about yourself, especially the chairman of the Republican Party of whole Orange County. That's a big position.
Well, I started off actually in politics when I was a very young child,
Mm-hmm.
actually in Los Angeles County, where I grew up in Glendale. Mm-hmm. My parents were very involved in politics. Before I was born, they were involved in the Goldwater for President campaign in 1964. And I started walking precincts, believe it or not, in 1972.
That was a long time ago. The Reagan time?
That was before Reagan. That was in the Nixon re-election.
Oh, I see. Oh,
but my mom, my mother, ran the 1976 Reagan for President headquarters in Glendale.
I see.
And as a result of that, got very involved, became president of the Republican Women in Glendale. Mm-hmm. My dad became a member of the Central Committee of the Republican Party of Los Angeles County. And he did that for 17 years. And so then when I went off to college at the University of California at Berkeley, I was already a fairly active Republican. But Berkeley, as you may know, is a very left-wing place, and there's always a lot of protests up there.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I found fascinating was being able to be the counterculture by being conservative. And I immediately got involved in conservative causes at Berkeley.
I see.
And I became president of the College Republicans at Berkeley.
If you can survive Berkeley, you can survive almost any political environment.
Oh, absolutely. You talked about listening a little bit earlier.
You're right. Yeah.
I had to listen well to what the people on the left were saying if I was going to be able to debate them. They're very intelligent. And if you're not a good listener, then you don't know what the other side's good points are, and you can't rebut them.
Good
and
point.
So that's what I did at Berkeley, and then that led me to be statewide chairman of College Republicans. Kind of fast forward, I went on to law school, married my wife, we moved to Orange County. She was very active in Republican politics in Orange County.
All right.
And
so this morning, my assistant briefed me about your wife with a huge story.
Yeah, it was very fun. It was very fun that we met in politics. And
by the way, your wife might be watching this show. Why don't you say
hi
to
so.
her?
Hi, Mignon. How are you?
All right, good.
So I got elected to the Central Committee of Orange County, just like my father had been elected to the Central Committee of Los Angeles County.
I see.
So I've served for over 20 years on the Central Committee in Orange County. I served 2 terms in the mid-90s as second vice chairman,
I see.
2 terms in the 2000s as first vice chairman for 2 different chairmen. And then came back and have been asked to serve as chairman since 2015. Orange County, we're really very stable. We've only had 4 chairmen of the party since the 1970s.
I see.
So in 40 years, we've only had 4 chairmen.
Only 4 chairmen.
And so I've been in the position 18 months now, but I've been on the committee for 20 years. So I understand what's necessary to actually get Republicans elected. And that's the primary job of the Republican Party, whether it's in Los Angeles, Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside. Our job is to get Republicans elected at all levels, whether it's city council, whether it's a school board, a water board, the state assembly, governor, president.
Of course, we'll certainly touch that part. But to hear your personal story, I kind of get the impression that you are the one that I need to talk to to get myself into the Republican philosophy.
Oh, thanks.
Call it that one, political philosophy, and also for a person being involved for more than 20 years, for two decades or even more time with the Republican Party. Of course, you are the most qualified to represent the party concept, right? So Orange County is a big thing, and it is stable. We know that, not only politically, but also the community, like the day-to-day life, like, on average, you see more stable area in that area rather than other areas.
I think so. Right? I think so. We're blessed with good economics. We have the lowest unemployment of any county in the state, and I think that helps us.
Okay. And we will leave the answer to the audience to find out why, but it is as a phenomenon, we notice that. Right? Okay. Speaking of that, though, your take, I'm not asking your personal take, I'm not asking about your Republican take about our status quo of the nation. So if you may say something like that on that, please. Well, are you satisfied with the status quo of United States of America, please?
No, personally, I'm not satisfied. My personal philosophy is one that I'd like to see less government out of Washington, and to the extent you have to have government to have a good civil society, that it act a little closer to the people. I happen to sit on the city council in the city of Orange, and when people want something, they're approaching me at church, they're approaching me in the grocery store, they're approaching me at a park. And that's really what a republic is about. That's really what a democracy is about.
Now,
is that
let's focus on the status quo in the United States. Politically, economically, and even defense, even foreign policies. Your take about your satisfaction or not, please.
I'm deeply dissatisfied, Jack. If you take a look at the government has grown to a tremendous extent, and it's taking all the power away from localities, and it's all centralizing it in Washington. And when you have so much bureaucracy, very hard to start a business. You have so many taxes, very hard to actually save wealth and provide for your children. We have a foreign policy that's supposed to be the main job of the president in Washington, D.C., right?
Okay.
And it's feckless. Our status in the world is really diminished. We're not a leader. We can't really make up our mind what we're going to do in the Middle East. We can't make up our mind as what we want Europe to be, where we want to be in Asia. So I'm very dissatisfied with the position of the country. And we've really been stagnant. Supposedly this is a recovery, an economic recovery. We have never seen since World War II an economic recovery where we're at 2% growth per year.
I see.
The growth rates coming out of recessions to be able to get people back to work need to be 3 and 4 and 5% a year. And we're less than 2%. And so that's why you have so much dissatisfaction.
To the political environment, call it atmosphere though, how do you comment on the our concept? Conceptually, is the United States going healthy, please?
I'm worried that it's not as healthy as it used to be. I think there is so much yelling at one another on talk radio sometimes, on the television talk shows, that there's so little willingness to listen. Like I'm really happy you're willing to listen to our point of view.
I see.
There's so many people out there now not willing to listen to an opposing point of view that unlike in the past where you'd have Republicans and Democrats coming together to actually get a project done, and you can go back to the 80s and 90s.
Thank you very much.
We
I
just
have
don't
a
get
very
that done
specific
anymore.
question, please.
Yeah.
I really wonder if I may ask you on that, right? Normally when, it is still true today, there are voices of all kinds. Whenever the issue becomes into law, and people gets quiet, people come down. So, for example, the legalization of same-sex marriage in California, like the third bathroom, stuff like that. So I wonder if you would want to still give some comment, even if they are in law already.
Well, I think the Supreme Court ruled on same-sex marriage, but I think what they ignored were that there are many, many people in this country of traditional values and traditional beliefs, and then that has allowed the president, in my opinion, too much freedom to just dictate regulations from Washington. For instance, on the the gender-neutral bathroom issue. And nobody wants to discriminate against anyone, but I think there's a lot of us who want to make sure our daughters are safe if they go into a bathroom.
And my sons too.
Yes.
All right, good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, my dear audience, I'm so glad that I have this opportunity to share this beautiful concept from this wonderful gentleman, Mr. Fred Whitaker. He is the chairman of the Republican Party of Orange County. We're just kind of going very carefully into a certain area that we're supposed not to touch. Oh, by the way, whatever I say, it is my personal opinion, totally representing me, myself, nothing but myself. Swear to God that way. All right. So we'll be right back, please, after this little break. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow, getting a little itchy when certain issues are touched. With me today is my good friend, Mr. Whitaker, representing Orange County Republican as the chair of that party. Well, we are having a good time, to be honest with you. And also, my audience know me that I used to tilt a little bit to the left, but right now I'm really in the middle of the road, ready to listen to from all directions. Now, to your direction, I certainly not totally agree.
Sure.
I may still respectively not agree with everything, but to certain points I do, such as the point that we just touched. Okay. Now that in the system, when issue comes into law, we obey, which is the law.
Right.
We are law-binding citizens. That's what we're called.
Right.
Yet that doesn't mean we can stop our personal feelings, right? So.
Well, and it doesn't mean that you stop advocating for maybe a change in the law.
All right, very good. Speaking of the change of the law, though, lots of people say that this coming election, the presidential election, is so important to a certain extent that not only it is an election itself, but also it leads to the future of the United States, even including the tilt of Supreme Court. Your comment, sir, please.
Well, I absolutely think it is one of the most important elections in American history. If you take a look just at the Supreme Court, there are probably at least 3, maybe 5 justices, because of their age, that in the next 4 to 8 years will either retire from the court or pass on, and the next president will be the one to appoint those justices.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court, and the way our system is set up with 3 branches of government, the Supreme Court is one of the best ways to check an overactive government, because it'll say the Constitution doesn't allow you to do this. And certainly when President Obama tried to make his decision to not deport thousands of people who have come across the southern border impermissibly, and then give them Social Security numbers and allow them to legally work, that wasn't in statute. That's not part of his enforcement power, and the Supreme Court said you can't do that. And so the Supreme Court's a very important check, and whoever the president is gets to appoint those nominees. So yes, this could be a sea change election. We've also had 8 years of what I would call a left-leaning government. And we see an economy that's overburdened by regulation, an economy that's overburdened by tax. And so it's very rare in American history that you have 3 4-year terms back to back of one government or another, because people sense the pendulum swings too much.
All right.
And so I honestly believe that now is the time to swing the pendulum back to the right, and so that we can actually curb some of the abuses that have happened over the last 8 years.
All right. Absolutely important. I may not say you're absolutely correct, but absolutely important. The importance lies in the fact that, you know, it may sound difficult, it may sound very complicated as American politics are concerned, yet till the end of the day, it is only an issue of the chicken and egg, which comes first. Am I right?
In some ways, yeah.
You have to go by Supreme Court decisions.
Right.
And then who appoints the judges of the Supreme Court?
Right.
And who this president represents party-wise, right? And the party represents certain concepts,
certain philosophies, right?
And then it goes all like a circle. So you're saying that the pendulum needs to swing to the right this time. Am I right reading your mind?
Absolutely. I think the pendulum needs to swing back to the right this time.
And also the other point you mentioned, that the age of 65 or 67, above that age, there are 3 or 4 judges.
I think
Supreme Court judges.
There's actually 4 above that age right now.
Within the next 4 8 years, 1 or 2 terms, they need to move. Well, they
could very well move.
They could, right?
I mean, Justice Ginsburg's 83, and we have a couple of justices in their late 70s.
79. There's what's the name? 79. The lady judge. And anyway, so it is important for Americans to choose a president who will tilt.
I think
balance or unbalanced a little bit. Am I right?
I think it's yes. I think it's very important that after 8 years of having a left-leaning government, that especially with the potential of the Supreme Court, which acts as a check on government power,
I see.
That we elect a president that's to the right, so that the Supreme Court will end up having that balance that's necessary to check government power. Because the founders set up this system so that government doesn't get out of control, and that government by the executive branch doesn't get out of control.
All right, okay, very good.
And so that's why it's so critical, Jack.
Okay, I understand that by checking situations or balance or unbalance at the Supreme Court, we start to realize the importance of this coming election, right?
Absolutely.
Also, let's just check about our foreign policies, right? So, does the foreign policies also say that this election is important, please?
Oh, I believe it does, because if you take a look at the Middle East, when President Bush left office, the Middle East was much more calm than it is today. If you take a look at the position...
But Bush created the war.
He did, but the war had pretty much ended entirely by the time that Bush had left office. The surge had been successful. They had their first set of elections in Iraq. And now what's happened is, because we left a complete vacuum under this president in Iraq, it totally disintegrated. And ISIS, which is the successor to Al-Qaeda...
Are you for the war, or you're not for the war?
I am for protecting the United States' interests. And once we were in Iraq, and once we had won in Iraq and had set up that republic, that democracy, I thought it was our obligation to stay there to make sure they were stable enough so that Al-Qaeda and ISIS didn't come back. Because, Jack, I'd much rather fight them there than fight them here. And instead what's happened is that because we left a vacuum of power in Iraq, their democracy, where everybody was so proud of having ink on their finger from having voted, their democracy totally fell apart as ISIS came back and took over 2/3 of that country. And now you see President Obama having to actually put troops back into Iraq, too little, too late. And you have all of these influences. Syria is a complete mess. He drew a line in the sand that he then didn't cross, and you ended up having a complete civil war meltdown in Syria.
In other words, be it right or be it wrong, it is time to do a change.
Absolutely
For
necessary.
a comparison, at least. For a comparison, at least, right?
Well, I think it's time for change to have actually more certain positions.
All right. Once again, this is not a debate. Of course, I do or do not agree. That's my own personal opinion.
And I'm just giving you the Republican position.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm just touching base with you about Republican position, right? So speaking of that Republican position, though, and speaking of the unsatisfied status quo of the United States everywhere in all the categories, though, do we see anybody hopeful of the Republican, out of Republican? That will be the subject when we come back from this little break. Shall we, please?
Thanks, Jack.
All right, good. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show. My dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, I love you so much. That's why every time when there's a chance, I would try to bring information which might be referential to your political decisions even sometimes, right? Like today with my good friend, Fred Whitaker, chairman of the Republican Party of Orange County. I'm having a good time touching base with him to those areas that I failed to listen in the past. Now I seem to see a little wider views than narrowing myself to 1 point or 2 points, something like that. Yet that may not say that I agree to the party position. At least I, as somebody under this beautiful flag of democracy, ready to listen. Am I right?
And we appreciate that because we can only win elections if people listen.
Of course. Now, back to one focus, that with the status quo that's not satisfying everybody, and with all these areas that have questions, including the foreign relations we just mentioned, so on and so forth. And of course, with the bigger size or smaller size of the government and so on and so forth, and with the tax, everything, we believe, and you believe at least, that there is a time to call for a brand new president from the brand new party. Am I right? So now, inside the Republican, is there anybody, or outside the Republican Party, is there anybody representing, and namely, we're talking about Donald Trump.
Okay.
So, do you think Donald Trump will represent your conceptual, all your concept, or all conceptual politics or political conception, please?
Well, I think if you compare Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump is closer to the Republican Party platform than Hillary Clinton is.
I see.
And so, while he won the nomination, there were 16 other candidates. And so inside the Republican Party, I like to say we have those 5 pillars of belief, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a wide spectrum of how people believe inside that. So Donald Trump, he has a few of those categories. He may not have all of them. But if I took a look at just a single choice, whether it's Hillary Clinton, who believes in the status quo and believes in a larger, more powerful government out of Washington to regulate everything that we do and to increase taxation, then it's an easier choice. But one of the great things about having a republic is, especially as the Republican Party, we believe that the government is not just out of Washington. It's in Sacramento. It's in Orange County. It's in Los Angeles County.
Yes, you're right.
And so we're working hard to get Republicans elected at all levels. So, for instance, in California, one of the reasons businesses are leaving California really in large numbers is because Governor Brown and the Democrats have increased taxes,
Yeah.
increased regulation.
We'll touch that part a little later. Let's
Okay.
focus ourselves on the presidential election, though.
Okay.
We're talking about, there are two pictures we're talking about. Number one, do we not believe till the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's going to be a contest between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump?
Yes,
Right?
it's just going to be a
The
contest
answer
between
is
those
yes,
two.
right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And the second picture, prior to that, we should find out within the parameter of Republican Party, though, do you find that Donald Trump representing or capable to represent the Republican Party? The reason I'm asking, sir, is that because talking to you, there are some points popping up that I feel, oh, Jack, you might agree to that.
Right.
But listening to Donald Trump, I
Right.
do not have that kind of feeling. So that's why I'm asking, is Donald Trump representing your concept, the party concept? Now you being the Orange County Republican, because you're the chairman.
I am the chairman.
I need your answer, please.
Well, so I represent the party and our party platform, right? And so our job is to get people of the center-right persuasion elected into office that are going to be as close to our platform as possible. Certainly in California, you know, Hillary Clinton is probably the odds-on favorite to win the state of California. I think, you know, Donald Trump represents certain elements of the Republican philosophy. I think he's a better representative for president than Hillary Clinton, but does he represent everything that the party platform has stood for 35, 40 years? No, he doesn't. Now, does everybody who we've ever nominated agree 100%? No, they don't. You know, for instance, I'm much more for free trade than Mr. Trump is. I don't like tariffs. I don't like you know, trade restrictions. And the Republican Party hasn't ever stood for tariffs since 1932. So you know, his position on that is different than the party's position.
You're saying that for the majority of his positions, he does represent the Republican Party.
Yeah, I think if you look at his positions around traditional culture,
All right.
his positions around a strong economy,
And stronger defense.
and stronger defense, he represents the Republican Party. I'm not convinced that he's 100% on limited government.
All right.
And I'm not sure on free markets that
Very
he's
good.
100% there. But you know, certainly he's much better than Hillary Clinton.
I see, I see. And on the other side of the picture, though, the other side of the coin, Hillary Clinton, do we say, or is it safe to say that it is almost the same picture that Hillary Clinton is not 100% representing the Democratic Party? Am I right?
I would actually maybe disagree with you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Because if I take a look at Hillary Clinton's positions and her positions as they've been over a 25-year period,
I see.
it's almost lockstep all the way with the Democratic Party platform. She wants to tax businesses and individuals at higher rates. She wants more government programs out of Washington, D.C.
I see.
She has said she will continue the policies of the Obama administration with respect to foreign policy, and she was the Secretary of State for President Obama. So that is just a continuation of everything we've had for the last 8 years. You know, certainly if you take a look at even some of her positions that have happened with respect to backing off of an agreement for free trade. She used to be much more for free trade than her own party was. Well, now she's taking the sort of Bernie Sanders position and the position that most of the Democrats are taking against free trade.
But still, she creates a bigger difference, or even bigger difference, between her and Bernie Sanders, socialism.
Oh, it's,
rather than
Bernie's
Donald
very
Trump, yeah.
Bernie's very extreme.
Yeah.
No question, he's very extreme. But he came out and endorsed her yesterday, and she's
Oh,
endorsed.
he did, of course.
Yeah, and she basically took most of his position, like on paying for college. She'll pay for college for a lot of people, not everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So she took a lot of his positions and just said, I'd like them a little lighter. And that's the problem, is once you start liking big government, you'll have somebody out here like Bernie saying, well, we need the government to do absolutely everything. And then it just pulls her further and further and further to the left. And I don't think the country's ready for that. And I think it'd be very damaging to our economy.
In other words, can we say, and the reason that, by the way, I'm asking is that lots of people say the same thing I say, that neither of the two candidates, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, kind of liked by majorities of Americans.
I think they both have high negatives, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting time for Americans that we have to make choices. And I think it's our responsibility to not walk away from the system, but to engage in the system and realize the president is not everything. Yes, we may have a choice between two candidates we don't like, but they're not a king.
But there are independents in the third party. Do they or any of them have a chance?
No. I don't believe any of the independents or third parties have a chance.
Not
the way
even
the
Johnson,
American,
right?
not even Gary Johnson. I mean, I think
Johnson,
Gary will probably end up in the 10-11% range.
I see.
But he won't have enough to win any of the states.
I see.
And there's a lot that many Republicans agree with Gary Johnson on, but there's a lot some Republicans don't agree with him.
Yeah, give me a little short description about where this country is going when Hillary Clinton takes office versus when Donald Trump takes office, please.
Well, I think if Hillary Clinton takes office, you're going to have a continuation of the same stagnation and maybe even go into recession because she wants to put even more layers of government regulation on the financial sector, on businesses in general. And once you do that, you're not going to have innovation or creation of jobs. The private sector just can't live under that intense amount of government weight. I think you'll also have a continuation of the same chaos in the world because as Secretary of State, she kind of led the chaos. I think if you have Donald Trump as a Republican president, you may not know everything you're going to get, but with a Republican Congress that aligns more on a Republican philosophy than, say, Mr. Trump does, I think that coordination between them, and realize, like I said earlier, the president, whether it's Hillary or whether it's Donald Trump, they're not a king, they're not a queen. And we have lawmakers in our House of Representatives and our Senate, and we have lawmakers at our state.
Speaking of lawmakers,
that all work to act as a check to make sure that things go right.
Sure. Speaking of lawmakers, you're talking about always come back to talk about check and balance, right? Speaking of a check and balance, so about Congress, we come back to the background when we started the Congress, right? So with the coming election, though, do you think that the Republicans will keep the majority in both houses?
I think they'll keep the majority in the House, no question. I think they'll keep the majority in the Senate if Mr. Trump wins. It'll be a close call if Hillary wins, simply because there are a lot of Republicans up in swing states. So it really is going to rest in some part on who wins in those swing states.
All right. Okay. Very good. I like this analysis. Very thorough. And in between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, though, who has better chance? You're reading. I'm a little kind of a little psychic.
Well, yeah. So I certainly if I took off my chairmanship hat that advocates, right, and I just looked at the facts, it's been a bad 10 days for Hillary Clinton, and certainly she has
she lost some momentum.
She's lost a lot of momentum, and her trustworthiness in polls is way down, and her polls in critical states are way down. She's now losing by 4 in Florida. She's now losing by 2 in Pennsylvania. They're tied in Ohio, and if you take a look at that and how that potentially swings, if Mr. Trump wins those states and he wins North Carolina and he wins Virginia, I think that right now the odds are tilting a little bit in Mr. Trump's favor, but it is very, very close to call.
Okay, very good. And the Congress, though, you're saying that the Republicans is going to hold the
House,
the Representative House, and to the Senate, though, is kind of tilting. It's kind of shaking, right?
Yeah, the Senate will go the way the presidency goes, probably.
I see. All right. Okay. Very good. So My dear audience, as it is very obvious that I'm trying to take the best out of him. My good friend Fred Whitaker, to predict into the election, which we're not totally being psychic. We're talking about something with logic, right? Political logic and with evidences. And so far, we start to see enough to be sure or not sure or about sure or whatever. So stay with us. And when we come back with the last segment, and we're touching base about our local elections, right? The state, the counties, or stuff like that. So be with you. Hello, dear folks. Welcome back to the show, my dear fellow Americans, fellow Californians, I would say. Welcome back to the show. Exactly. We are, at this moment, talking about our presidential election of 2016, which is claimed to be the most important in American history ever. Okay? And we have lots of reason to back that up. Through the analysis of the previous previous segment with my good friend Fred Whitaker, chairman of the Republican Party of Orange County. Once again, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack.
And once again, thank you for sharing your beautiful thought.
Oh, thank you.
Like I said in the very beginning, that I used to be kind of tilting a little bit to the left. Now, especially starting the second term of Obama administration, I started to walk out of the old cliche to stand in the middle of the road. Now I'm ready to listen to both sides, which is better. They say, hey, you're more mature politically than before, right?
Well, I'm always love it when people are willing to listen. So,
okay, I want to give you a chance, see if you can convince me.
Okay.
Right? If you drag me over to your party, of course, I would love to, but yeah, you have to prove it, right? Okay, now,
right.
Speaking of the local election, though, which is a big part of the election, too, of course, you have the state, you have the county, you have the city, everywhere, right? Lots of people join the race. So what's your take to call you, number one, your own party members, number two, to call upon your own constituents in the area, within the range, Orange County. So what message do you want to deliver, please?
Well, if you take a look at what happened in the primary, not very many Republicans turned out in our California primary in June. And that was really because people thought, well, the presidential primary was over, and so they didn't have a reason to vote. And you saw a lot of Democrats get out to vote. And that turned out some kind of odd election results and made some races that are going to go into the fall a lot closer than they probably should be. And for Californians, if we think that Hillary Clinton wins California, for a lot of Republicans and maybe people in the middle, they might say, well, I'm just going to stay home because my vote isn't going to count. I really want to encourage people to actually get out to the polls because, California, we lose businesses every day left and right because we have very high taxation. We have overly burdensome regulation. Did you know that the Democrats 2 years ago had supermajorities in the legislature? That means that they had 2/3 majority in both the state Senate and the state Assembly, and they could pass tax increases, which they did on your car tax, on the Prop 30. They could do all of that without any Republican votes. Well, in 2014, we won key seats back from the Democrats. And in the last 2 years, we've stopped every attempt to change Prop 13, to increase business taxes, to increase income taxes. We've stopped every single one of them. Well, right now, there's a couple of key races. Ling Chang is our assemblywoman from the Assembly District 55. She is running in Senate District 29 to replace Bob Huff, who's term limited out.
All right.
We think that's a critical race, and the Democrats do too. That's the only state Senate race they're putting money in because they know if they win that one seat back, they get their 2/3 back.
I see.
Likewise, in the Assembly, Assemblywoman Young Kim from the 65th Assembly District, she's running for re-election. In the primary, Sharon Quirk Silva, the Assemblywoman that she beat, actually came out with an incredibly good showing. And we are very concerned because if the Democrats win the Young Kim seat, or the Dave Hadley seat in Torrance, or the Catherine Baker seat up in Northern California, they take the supermajority back. And if they take the supermajority back, Prop 13 that guarantees everybody having low property taxes, or that there's only going to be a 1% increase a year, that could go away. Prop 30, the Democrats have already trying to get an extension on Prop 30, which extends us. We have the highest income tax in the entire nation. You know, we want to be a state of job creators, not job exporters. And so if you think there's not a reason to vote because maybe Hillary's going to win our state, once again, I really want people to think the president is not a king or a queen. We have a lot that goes on at the state or the local level, and we want people to get out and vote for folks who are business friendly, who are friendly to low taxation, because that happens at the local level.
When you say check and balance, you're talking about checking and balancing everywhere, not only at the federal level, the state, and even local level. Speaking of local level, though, in Orange County, you proudly announced in one of your websites saying that among the 5 supervisors, they're 100% Republicans.
That's right.
And about your proud nipsies?
Yeah, absolutely. We even last year in a special election won a seat that is a 20-point Democrat registration advantage. Andrew Do, Vietnamese American, won that by 43 votes. He's up for re-election in the regular year. That's one of our targeted seats. And we think it's just incredibly important to show how we have good fiscal management. We outsource as many of our services as possible. And that's because we have a unified Republican, all 5 on our Board of Supervisors. And if you take a look at how Orange County is run, I mean, all you have to do is go down the 5 freeway and see what we've done in Orange County over the last 20 years versus what Los Angeles County has done. And we use our taxpayer funds wisely. I see. And I think that's because we've had Republican leadership.
Okay, sir, I may ask a question, some question by which I may sound stupid. May I please go ahead?
Oh, right, absolutely. Good. No questions.
Okay, now, on one hand, at the state level, you promote some kind of getting back a position so that you make the balance of the parties, of the partisans. And on the other hand, the local level, you're proud of your 100% Republicans. So do you not promote equal representation? Please, put it to me.
As chairman of the party, I always think that our view should be the view that's in governance. Right?
All right, okay.
And I think the proof in the pudding is that we've had good governance in Orange County. I think the proof of the pudding that California is on the wrong track is that the Democrats have been in governance for a very long time, practically unchecked. And the only way you're going to see a little bit of sanity or a little bit of some rational policy is by having some Republicans to check. I'm not so Pollyannish to think that Republicans can win statewide. Right now, we only have 27% of voter registration statewide, where I've got over 40% registration in Orange County. Right? It's a different scenario. So what I have to do is statewide, we have to convince people in the San Gabriel Valley. We have to convince people in the San Fernando Valley. We have to convince people in the Central Valley. We have to convince people north of Napa and Sonoma that they should be electing a Republican to their legislature to try and keep the legislature a little bit under control.
I see.
And I would love it. 20 years ago, 1996, we had a Republican governor, and we had a Republican majority in the state assembly, and we got really good things done. If you remember the rebuilding of all the infrastructure after the earthquake, that was done under Republican leadership. Mayor Reardon in Los Angeles, Governor Wilson, and they did it on time, under budget, and gave people free market incentives to rebuild the infrastructure. Now, Caltrans, any of our government agencies are hamstrung by regulations, hamstrung by all of these rules that say how much prevailing wage they have to pay.
Trains.
Oh, the bullet train. That's a
Of course,
waste of
yeah.
money.
Bullet trains, yeah.
Complete waste of money.
I really hate that we do not have time to talk about bullet trains. To look at the train, I of course like to look at the train, but to look at the pocket, into our pocket, we don't have the money, and that's a
Billions
subject.
of dollars.
That's a subject of another day. All right, so let's back
absolutely.
to our business. And when I'm asking back to my last question, though, am I right by reading your mind by saying that, as a Republican leader, you believe that you, the party, would be the one representing the traditional concept of United States?
Oh, I think
And
so. Yes.
as a politician, to stand in the middle to look at the U.S. politics in a general way, though, you're talking about the least we should balance it.
Yes.
Am I right? Is the right way to
absolutely.
read your mind, please,
As
sir?
an advocate.
I don't want to confuse you, and plus confusing myself, right?
No. As an advocate, I believe that our philosophy on the Republican side, on the center right, is the best governing philosophy. And I think the proof has been that when we've been in power, we've had better results in our economy, in our foreign policy, in our state, in our localities, when Republicans have been in control. But if Republicans aren't in control, then you need to at least have somebody on the other side of the aisle who's got some ability to have some power to check what's going on. The founders set it up that way. I mean, we have 3 branches of government federally. We have 5 branches of government in the state, 3 up in Sacramento, and basically 2 when you get down to the local between the counties and the municipalities. So
exactly. Our politics, till the end of the day, you're only talking about like making bread. You need a certain acidity to balance it.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're talking about bloom like that, right? All right.
Either that or it has no yeast and it doesn't rise.
Exactly, exactly. All right, joining me today is my good friend, chairman of the Republican Party of Orange County, a beautiful county, by the way. We had this opportunity to share his beautiful thoughts, to share the leadership concept. And right now we're talking about election is coming near, and it is important, if I quote by quote, quote unquote, from him, that it is important you do not assume that it is a Democratic state and it is gonna kill that way, gonna be a landslide. My vote doesn't count or wouldn't count, but anyway, still go ahead, exercise your right of democracy, that's it.
Absolutely.
Right? All right. So plus even 1 vote counts.
Always does.
All right. And we're over time already. Every time when we're talking about this, we go over time. Thank you very much, my dear audiences, for watching. And to you, sir, thank you very much for your time, your beautiful concept, and your sharing.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate being here.
Thank you.
All right.